Runnemede Board of Education meeting is called to order. The Board of Education is in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act. The time, date, and location of this meeting was appropriately advertised by notifying in retrospect as well as posting notices in the Borough Hall, Runnemede Post Office, Marygold School, Lion Bingham School, Grace Downing School, and the Runnemede Public School District website. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, board members.
Ms. Dare, Ms. Beebe.
Here.
Mr. Buckheim.
Here.
Ms. Davidson.
Here.
Mr. Lego.
Here.
Mr. Murray.
Here.
Ms. Panzarella.
Here.
Ms. Sands.
Here.
Ms. Spalding.
Here.
We have quorum.
Also present, Mark Iannucci, Superintendent of School, Dr. Sean McCarron, Business Administrator and Supervisor for the one last time of curriculum instruction. All right. At this time, I need approval of minutes for the regular and executive meeting on May 21st.
I make a motion to approve regular and executive meeting minutes.
Motion made by Maria, seconded by Dan. Any questions? Roll call.
Ms. Beebe.
Yes.
Mr. Buckheim.
Yes.
Ms. Davidson.
Yes.
Mr. Lego.
Yes.
Mr. Murray.
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella.
Yes.
Ms. Sands.
Yes.
Ms. Spalding.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, at this time, we have a brief presentation.
I just want to introduce Jim from Epic Environmental. Jim's worked with us in the past. I know Mr. Lego has also experienced working with Jim for his previous jobs. He's going to tell us about the gym floor update, where we're at, answer any questions that you might have, and who are the experts. So
Just so everyone knows, everything that is posted on the website, you have in front of you, and it is black binder clip. All the information that has been posted on the website, you also have in front of you, and that's what Jim will be going over as well. Yep.
No, I have not. I just kind of go off the cuff. I don't have a prepared speech or anything. I'll just speak right down to this. Just to give you a background, rubberized gym floors that were installed basically through the 1960s up through the mid to late 1990s, and even later than that, used a mercury compound as part of the installation process. Actually, in the beginning, it was part of the production process. It was a mercuric acetate that was used to help cure the product more quickly and to give it some flexibility, keep it rubbery for a longer period of time. In the mid-1990s, the manufacturers stopped using it. So a lot of schools and other entities that had these floors installed after the 1990s mistakenly assumed that their floors were mercury-free. That was not the case. We have sampled floors. We're currently working with over a dozen districts right now that are addressing this, and it seems for the feedback I'm getting and from what other people are saying, is that although it wasn't being used in the manufacturing of the floors, the installers were still using it up through, I'd say, 2006, 2007, 2008. The amount of mercury that was used was very small, basically a tablespoon or two for a 55-gallon drum. So it was not a lot. Where the concern takes place is over time, this mercury compound decays, just like other chemicals do, and you can have a very slow release of mercury vapors into the air. This has become, I wouldn't say in the news, but it's something that's been knowledge kind of swirling around for a while, mostly in the case of taking the floors out, because they know that the mercury was in the floors, and we would test the floors before they were taken out to see if it was a hazardous waste or not. As most of you are probably familiar with, the Washington Township School District addressed this earlier in the year, and it became public through the news and everything else. So a lot of other districts, although it's not a a state requirement to test for mercury in the floors, many districts have taken it upon themselves, especially in the Camden, Gloucester County area, they have these floors to assess them. And it's a step-by-step process, or at least it's a new issue, so there may be different ways to look at it. What we've been doing is we come in and we take a sample of the floor, an actual very small 2 by 2 inch sample of the floor from 2 locations. And we're following as much as we can. New Jersey has, the teachers union has put out some guidelines, the NJPA, for evaluating these floors. So as part of this process, we have, for this district, we collected a couple samples and had them analyzed. And by that criteria, following the NGA criteria, any flooring that has more than a part per million of mercury would be considered a mercury-containing floor. And then you would take the next step to evaluate airborne concentrations, whether or not it's a hazardous waste. Actually, Runnemede is one of the only 2 or 3 districts that was proactive to the point of taking a sample for waste classification. So what we did was we did determine that the floor in the gymnasium does have mercury above the 1 part per million. So we came in and we collected air samples. Air samples were collected over the course of a normal day. I don't recall, had you closed the gym or was it open?
We relocated the gym classes for the day because we were worried about the equipment getting tampered with.
Yes.
So
Okay.
therefore we.
Yeah, I could have looked at my notes here, but many districts, as soon as they found out that they had mercury-containing floors, closed those areas down. Some did, some didn't. It was basically the decision of the school. So we did collect samples over the course of a normal day, and we evaluated the results of those samples. We collected 2 samples in the gymnasium, 1 sample in an adjacent area, 1 sample outside. In addition to that, we following the NGA criteria, the samples, because this is an elementary school, are collected 3 feet above the floor to represent the breathing zone of the child. We also collected a sample at 5 feet because while there is great concern about the children in the areas, the amount of time that a child is in that room or in that area is nothing compared to the amount of time that teachers spend in that area. Many more hours a week, many more years. So in addition to getting the sample results from a lower breathing level, we also want to get sample results from a higher breathing level. The results were compared to, now the state of New Jersey, although it's not a regulation, they have put out some guidelines, the state of New Jersey Department of Health, and they are recommending an exposure limit or exposure criteria, I'd like to say, of 0.8 parts per billion or 0.8 micrograms per liter of air. It's a very small amount of measures in the parts per trillion. What the State Department of Health and their CIHs have basically formulated is that if you have levels of 0.8 or less, that is protective of 16 hours a week for a child, 40 weeks a year at the age of 3 years old. So the 0.8 criteria is what we've been following. Now, if you're above 0.8, then we recommend that you look at the air handling system. In some cases we have, not in this district, but in some districts we have results above 0.8. And in all those cases, when the maintenance department looked into things, they actually determined they had conditioning. The fan wasn't working well. They thought they were getting 20% fresh air and they were getting 0% fresh air. So there's usually an issue involved with results at that level. The results that we have gotten range from 0.15 to 0.23 parts per billion. So the criteria is 0.8 parts per billion. When we did the sampling under normal conditions, it was significantly below that. Now, these are long-term amounts. Nothing that we're seeing, and I want to stress this, no levels that we've seen anywhere in the testing that we've done would be considered immediately dangerous or immediately hazardous, where if a person is in that area, they're at risk for heavy metals poisoning or something numbers that we're looking at are for long-term exposures over a period of time. So far, now this is an ongoing process. This isn't a once and done thing. We collect samples on a normal day, but that was just, 1 8-hour or 1 7-hour period of 1 day, of 1 week, of 1 year. So in addition to that, I do believe that we're going to be doing what's called worst case scenario testing over the summer. And basically what that will amount to is we'll collect samples in the gymnasium on a hot day, and they're coming up with the ventilation shut down with no fresh air. Because the hotter the temperatures are, the more mercury is potentially to be given off. So what we want to do is we want to determine and say, okay, air conditioning, normal conditions, we know what we're looking at, but we want to see what it's like in a worst case scenario. So if an issue does occur and the ventilation goes down and it's a hot day, or there's no fresh air coming in, the district would like to have some guidance on what they would do as a response to that. We also recommend over a long period of time that districts for these floors sample a couple times a year to assure that they're maintaining, that they're keeping the levels low and that the levels they're maintaining are below the criteria that the state has set. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of what we're doing. Does anyone have any specific questions?
I have a couple questions for you, Jim. You talk about summertime, no air blowing. How hot are your sinus force, which means that it's winter time, when you're in an area with the heat on, that's going to be worse than an area in summer. You have a cooling system.
Yeah, I mean, it's based on temperature, so I mean,
Samples are done during the cold season and the heating season.
well, during the cold season, the heat will be on, but you'll be getting fresh air, and usually, I'd say whether it be summer or winter time, usually have a target temperature of 70 to 72 degrees, regardless of what the temperature is outside. So what we've been seeing, what we've been doing, because we started doing these samples back in April, and it was, still a little cold outside, and for the most part, our temperatures were in the high 60s to low 70s when we were doing the testing.
You're thinking if you take samples during now, air conditioning ones would be less. The readings would be less.
They probably would be with the air conditioning on, which is why we don't want to do it with the air conditioning on. We want to get a worst case scenario.
The other question, is this something that's just going to dissipate over time, or is this like radon, where it's got to be constant, it's never going to leave?
I don't know that anybody knows that yet, because this is such a new issue. We don't have data on, how much mercury is in the floor now compared to how much there is in 5 years, 10 years. I mean, of course, if it's dissipating, eventually it will dissipate completely. Whether or not that's 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, I don't know that anybody knows that yet.
See, with all those concerns, I'm just wondering, as the board, you have a child in school, I know a lot of them have to say, I want 0. It just seems like it's a process you can kind of go into to see whether this is safe, not safe, or whatever, but they would talk about.
Well, yeah, it's a newer issue. It's a newer issue, and we're basing what we're doing on the experts, on the epidemiologists, and the people that study these types of things. Most of the states that have criteria are in the 0.7 to 0.8 range for what would be considered a safe exposure. Now, those numbers could change. They could go up, they could go down. These numbers always change. I mean, you did this for a while, so you can see that the permissible solar exposure limits can go up, they can go down. So basically, as a consultant, what we have to do is we have to take the best information that we have and say, look, the 0.8 is a conservative criteria. That's actually well below what the EPA would have out there. They're well over a part per million with their criteria. So we're bringing it down. State of New Jersey, like I said, is 0.8. Now your numbers are 0.2, 0.22, 0.15. The detection level of the test is 0.13. So we could, the air sampling that we're taking, you can't even get below 0.1. So as far as, the amount of mercury that's in the air, depending on what the detection level of the test is, you're very close to the detection level of the test.
Is there anything, I know, we had a spill at the Washington Township one time where we still had big of mercury.
I remember that.
Right. It kind of dissipated, and then when it kind of got cool, and it came back and reformed from the vapor to the solid. Is this something that could happen at the interval?
No, we don't anticipate, no, it's not that much. We're seeing, maybe 200 to 300 parts per million in the floor, and that's not elemental mercury. That is a mercuric compound. So as far as, absorption and things like that, those levels are not high enough to what would be considered, contact with the skin and things like that. So the airborne levels are very, very low. We don't, this is not this isn't like the mercury factory in Franklin Township where you had elemental mercury on the floor. This isn't a situation like that. It's in a stable matrix. It's in the floor. And just, very, very slowly over time it decays. And when it decays, then that's when you have the slow release of mercury. So by controlling the temperature and controlling the fresh air, what we're seeing is that we control the temperature and the fresh air coming into the area. Some districts, and I think it's not a bad idea, is to run the ventilation in the area where the floor is located, run 24 hours a day. Now, I know your energy efficiency people are going to have a fit, but some things, supersede the energy efficiency types of things. So
The other issue too with the weatherized floor, what about as far as leaching into the concrete, and that issue for that, or do you test for that?
yeah, now there's a couple different tests you can do. There's a total mercury test which we did to determine if the floor had mercury in it. The second test that we did, we actually did it the same day we did the air system, was a TCLP test. Now, TCLP is toxic characteristic leaching procedure. I have a tough time saying it without holding my tongue. Basically, what that does is it takes the material and it mimics what the material would do in a landfill. And if you have more than 0.2 parts per million, that would be estimated to leach into the environment. It's considered hazardous waste. So if the district or any district tests the floor and they determine that it would be a hazardous waste, the next step, if you're going to start moving forward, removing the floor, and we haven't even talked about this, we haven't gotten that far, would be to collect samples of the concrete, core samples of the concrete from various locations, and then you can determine if the mercury is leaching into the floor, and if it is leaching into the floor, how much. So if it leaches into the floor an eighth of an inch, you may be able to take that and blast it to the point where there's no more mercury in the floor. If it goes, further into the floor, you may end up having to take the whole floor out, prior to, installing it.
The other question, I guess it's more for Sean. Was any students that experience this be like blood work or something different not breastfeeding?
I sent a email on May 29th to Samantha, Tamar, and Sean, and my gut feeling is I'm looking for a replace. And this is why I react that way. I can remember when I was a teenager many years back. They said secondhand smoke won't hurt you. I lost my mother and an aunt who did smoke with her husband did and got lung cancer and died. I remember them telling us back when I was a teenager in high school, when you go to Big Space Street, you put suntan on it, because it will protect you. And we found out years later that you needed sunblock. And tens of thousands of people came down with skin cancer. I don't want to roll the dice with the children that come to this building and the staff that work in this building. And I know it won't be a cheap and inexpensive process or project. I think the safety and well-being of the children and the staff is of the utmost. My feeling won't change, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing. To me, having a company come in every 3 months and test year after year after year, and it's giving us something, and it could be going down the concrete. My feeling is we should replace the floor. We have an obligation to make sure this environment is safe for our children and for our staff.
Like you were saying, it just seems like a lot of unknowns. It could be
Yeah.
just like a as a parent, I don't want that number.
And I have no children in the school, but I'm a board member and I care about every child in the school. And everyone, these folks that work in the school. And especially the visit teachers in that room all the time, except when they're outside. So I'd say at least half of the school year, they're spending the entire day in there.
Well, next month at our goal setting, we'll have to talk a little bit more in detail. So make sure you write that down.
Yeah, if the district is going to move into that direction, then probably a good idea would be to start getting data on the actual cover. Because depending on characteristics of the floor, characteristics of the concrete, when they sampled the flooring down in Washington Township, we actually determined that it did not leach into the concrete. So they were all very pleased about that. But in order to get a good cost, in order to find out what this is going to cost, it's best to start getting more information in order to determine, what the scope of that removal is going to be. We already know it would be hazardous waste, but then the next step would be, does it affect the concrete and how that would be affected as well. Because if you're going to remove it, you want to get all of it. I'm not a believer in capping. I'm not a believer in putting a layer down on top of the floor or anything like that. If you're going to get rid of it, then you do it right.
Any other questions? Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
At this time, we're open for public comment on agenda items only. We have no questions. And Mr. Aguirre, Superintendent.
This enrollment hasn't changed since last month. Summer programs are up and running. Check out our website. We have all that information posted on the announcements as far as Chromebook camp, summer programs, PSY, Play 1 program starting after the holidays. Also, our sports clinics, our numbers are kind of low, so we're looking if we have to make any cancellations for them. We'll let the parents which aren't as high as they'd like them. Fine. Get that message out. We sent out a class out there to parents. Personnel, we have some candidates tonight for recommendation. Also, throughout the summer, we interviewing for some other jobs as they come along. We have a secretary Willis. We have a couple other positions that will pop up. One resignation will add to the agenda for today. So we try to keep posted on those people. Summer work has begun. That's why we're in here tonight. So libraries, D-wings, those things are being done. You saw the dumpsters outside. Work's coming along well. All the lockers are gone from, the blue lockers are gone from the 8th grade hallway as well as the D-wing here to be replaced. They've already demoed some bathrooms in the C-wing as well as the D-wing. And the library's also getting a makeover as well. Captain Murray was here, some colleagues on the last PD day. I just like to say that. Say Captain Dan, so far as comes from that.
And Captain Sid also.
And Captain Sid was here as well, that was committee. And they did a quick PD with our staff regarding safety. We're going to plan some things coming up not only for September, opening day, but next spring, hopefully do a mock drill. I don't know if we'll talk about that.
Yeah, what our goal is to do, we had a village right this year, which was run by our local SWAT team, which we have a couple members on. And we had Barrington, Magnolia, Audubon, and other departments respond as if it was an actual active shooter. And what we want to do is do something similar to that in this school. And we want to utilize more of our people, Runnemede officers, Runnemede fire, EMT, the people who we get in here first. And we're going to try to incorporate it in with teachers and maybe even reach out to try to get some older students to play, role play for us to make it a little more realistic. We've been training for years with moving and shooting, things like that, doing moves and shooting in live houses and things like that. But we need to start incorporating everything into the school, that's what we're doing.
Working with us in the summer, talk about some things, and then keep you posted on timeline as far as that. Graduation last week, thank you to the attendant to make it. Nice presentation, kids did a great job. Beautiful weather, so it's always good to have that. It's always nice having the air there, so we look forward to the students moving along. That's all I have for you at this time.
Dr. McCarron, thank you. Anybody have any questions?
I just have one, just with the president. I would be surprised that to be a volunteer coach at the middle school level, you don't have to have, when I was working in secondary education, you had a minimum 60 credits before you could be a coach, a volunteer coach. And they don't require it.
Well, that was our, if you look, when Mark responded to my question,
Yeah, he did.
There's it's our policy. I mean, we can change our policy. That's what our job is. So if you want to change it, we can change it.
We've used some kids.
Well, this was a policy statewide. Because our policies, we get them from the New Jersey School Board Association. So I'm assuming that in middle schools, it's not
It's any
required.
school, yeah, and again, we've used other schools.
High school definitely is.
We've used students that in the last couple of years as far as baseball.
Yeah.
This is something new. We just haven't had anything up, but it's something that I attach to the policy.
And I don't know if it's so much having the credits as maybe just the maturity level. Because you're guaranteed this person down will be at least 20, maybe even 21 years of age, rather than right out of high school. Okay,
I know, like, my son's in camp this week where one of the assistant counselors is 16 years old.
Yeah.
So I know all that what it is. Sometimes there's kids that age who play a little better, so monitor the issues. Yep. Something we're going to get.
I think it's
Right, well, that if you read Mark's email,
I
that's.
did, I read it, yeah, but that's what I'm saying, sometimes.
We know that that's happening.
Right.
Because my experience is always high school minded, but like with certain things, that's why I question that.
Summer camp is up and running. We currently have 145 students registered. That's 15 students over what we had last year. We still have people registering. Usually when we start is one Title I, which is July 8th. We usually get a few more registrations because it backs into the summer program to begin with. We're currently in preparations for the audit. A lot of ordering for the 1920 school year. And in addition to that, as you see throughout the building, there's a ton of projects taking place. Since we have, those 10 weeks really to get as much done as possible. So make sure we're ready for our 2 new preschool classes come fall. And of course, we're moving in the middle of it. So, boxes are packed and we are trying to make sure that we're out before they demo the offices, which would be fantastic. So, Mr. Busy. Also, I know I had something else to report on. There we go, sorry. You did, I really reminded me, it sparked something inside of me. So real quick, this year we went through our QSAC audit. I posted underneath my report, I'm just gonna stand up so you see guys. I posted underneath my report our response back that we got from the state. So that's where they come in for their audit of the entire district overall as far as where we fell with different things. So under curriculum instruction, we received 76%. Of the 76%, the 24 points that we lost are on points specifically related to standardized state testing. That's where we lost points altogether. In terms of identifying the needs of subgroups, and in terms of meeting the needs of our subgroups and showing growth from year to year, we received points. But in terms of proficiency in single years, that's where points were reduced. In the areas, in terms of curriculum, making sure assessments were set up, benchmarks, all of those pieces that they assessed, we received 100% points in all of those areas. In the area of, hold on one sec. In the area of personnel, we received a 96%. We lost 4 points due to the fact that a subcommittee, we do have 2 separate committees. However, we use the same agenda for the same 2 schools. because we are addressing those issues at both schools. So they took points off because it wasn't a separate agenda. And then we lost 5 points in the area of fiscal management, and that went along with our facility buildings, because in front of an electrical box, when they came through, there was an item, it was a chair rack that was over the line by about 5 inches, that needed to be moved, and it wasn't within the 3 feet. The standards are constantly changing. We're constantly meeting those standards. We're addressing those issues each year. One thing that we will be submitting to the state is the district improvement plan, which for the district improvement plan, we will continue providing job and better professional development. We will continue addressing the needs in the areas of language arts and staff. If you look from one year to the next, we have been showing improvement in terms of student growth from one year to the next. But for example, if 40% of our students met proficiency, out of 10 points, we would receive 4. Same thing is true for language arts, same thing is true for math. So it's one of those things where if we don't hit a certain benchmark, or 100%, we're not getting the full 10 points, and points are being reduced. So the area where we lost points were the areas where we weren't providing them with something to see or do. They were pulling information from the state data that they received. Questions I can answer. In July's meeting, you will have benchmark data that will show you fall to spring benchmark data for the 18-19 school year, as I will show you. We're starting to get embargoed results for the New Jersey SLA, Student Learning Assessment, formerly PARC, for ELA and math. So we're breaking those down as we get them. So far we've received math. That won't get released though until August for us to give to parents, but we get the preliminary results, kind of look and see how the district fared in each of those areas. And then that helps us in terms of goal setting, in terms of what we want to do moving forward.
Any questions?
In terms of that number, well, don't forget, this is the first time we've gone through the CUSAC review with the new rubric. So this is the new rubric, so they were using a completely different platform. So just like when you get used to one thing, it's kind of like, here's something new for you to look at. It is straightforward, but what I will say is, I like to argue things often, and sometimes the calculations that they're figuring out are difficult and construed in terms of how you're figuring it out. So while I thought our percentage was higher in certain areas, losing a few students here and there to non-test, to not being tested, changes the averages. So if I'm looking at my students who tested for NJSLA, I might get 48 or 49% students in terms of met or exceeded expectations. Yet, if I look at my students completely, and instead of just looking at the students who tested, I'm looking at the students for the grade, and worse, as a smaller district, if you have 5 students who don't test, whether their parents refuse to test, don't want them testing, they are on vacation, they aren't there for makeups, that number then changes your percentage that you're getting slightly from that point. And sometimes there's 5 different areas, so while it's met and exceeded, in the past for prior assessments, a 3 was also counted towards that. That 3 has been removed. So 1, 2, and 3 does not count towards your proficiency, a 4 and 5 does. So that also changes things slightly. And then of course I always like to look at the students who are within 10 points of that met expectations, because that could be simply 1 or 2 questions that might have been answered improperly that would have pushed it one way or another. So those cusp students that we're looking at.
So if you didn't agree with any scoring, would you submit
Here's what I'm going to say. At the end of the day, I'm going to argue this with the county office. I'm going to share what I have to do, but I also have to submit and report to the Board of Education at the next Board of Education meeting. It doesn't mean it's said and done. What it means is that they'll come back in the usually spring and they'll do a reassessment. Mark and I have very good relationships with the people at the county office, and I think that also assists in the process. But oftentimes we're getting the results back, not necessarily from them, but also from the state level at that point. So we will continue to address that and then move on from there. However, the interventions and the programs that we have in place do show that growth is being seen in our students within the district.
When we get the test scores, you show the results. I want to thank April for this. I like the format that you did this year.
Oh, with the benchmarks and the
Yes,
comparison?
so hopefully we get the statistics out the same way.
Yep, I'm gonna take the same thing, just add an additional column so that we can see it from year to year.
If not, Angel will call that day, they will change it. Tell them to Yes, right. In typical Angel fashion, at 6:03 PM on her way to a meeting. All right. Other district reports, principals, nurses, building and grounds, special education reports were attached. Let's see much there. Any questions there? Any committee reports at this time?
The zoning, planning and zoning board meeting, which I attended each month, was canceled for the month of June. They will be meeting in July, and I'm asking if someone could attend it. It's the second Wednesday. I will be on vacation that week. I will be in the state of New Jersey.
Is that the 10th?
I don't have, I can't.
Yes.
I will be in the United States.
I'll be in the United States.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. So, we have a
I'll be in Settle. Awesome.
And Canton County Education Services Commission, which I attend, I played hooky and didn't attend because I wanted to go to the ceremony to see Mr. Daniel Murray promoted to captain of the new Runnemede Police Department. But right after the meeting, I did call and I was able to interact on the phone. It was a reorganization meeting. There was nothing, any major consequences. The voting for who was going to be on the board of directors again. I'll on it again. I had a report on the bills since I'm the treasurer for the commission, and other than that, it was no significant.
And the borough's actually, their meetings, their budget.
Anyone else have any other reports?
The Camden County School Boards Association, they're going to be having an organizational meeting in July, which I was invited to, like a leadership meeting, just to try to encourage other board members, brainstorming on how to get more people involved in attending the classes, the extra classes to earn, your certification. So it's kind of like a brainstorming and a group getting together over the summer. So I'll give you a report. That's in July 9th, I believe.
For Black Horse Pike, I know I sent this to you guys, but we had two valedictorians, one from Runnemede and the salutatorian at Triton High School were both two Runnemede girls, so that always makes us proud, so I wanted to just say that publicly.
Most of if you listen to the with honors graduates, they were all from Runnemede. It's a very special.
And graduation last week, I counted 37 of our 8th graders, so I think it was 80 or 89, right? That had honors. There were only 5 males. The other 32 were all females.
Well, I mean,
Triton was a little more diverse in their gender.
The boys,
gotta step it up. Yeah.
Right.
All right. At this time, we are going to go into executive session, so I need a motion to go into executive.
Second?
Motion made by Angel, seconded by Naomi. All in favor? Ayes have it. Whereas the Senator Byron and Fair Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-12, require all meetings of the Runnemede School District Board of Education to be held in public. NJSA 10:4-12B sets forth 9 types of matters that may lawfully be discussed in executive session without the public being permitted to attend. And whereas the Runnemede Public School District Board of Education has deemed it necessary to go into closed session to discuss certain matters which are exempted from the public, and whereas the 9 exemptions to the public meetings set forth in NJSA 10:4-12B are listed below. And next to each exception is a box within the number of issues we privately discussed that fall within that exception shall be written. And after each exception is a space for additional information that will disclose as much information about the decision as possible without undermining the purpose of this exemption shall be written. Now therefore be resolved that the Runnemede Public School District Board of Education will go into closed session for the following reasons as outlined in NJSA 10:4-12B. Any collective bargaining agreement or terms or conditions of which were proposed for inclusion in any collective bargaining agreement, including the negotiation of terms and conditions with employees or representatives of employees of the public body, more specifically the superintendent's contract, and any matter involving the employment, appointment, termination of employment, terms and conditions of employment, evaluation of performance, promotion or discipline of any specific respective public officer or employee or current public officer or employee, employed or appointed by the public body, Runnemede Public School District Board of Education will make every attempt to estimate the time of the session prior to reconvening, after which the public meeting shall reconvene at, let's say, 8:10, about 20 minutes or so. Do you agree with that? All right, great. And the Runnemede Public School District Board of Education will proceed with business. Now therefore be it resolved that the Runnemede Public School District Board of Education will go into executive session for only the above stated reasons. Be it further resolved that the Runnemede Public School District Board of Education hereby declares that its discussion of the aforementioned subjects may be made public at a time when the Runnemede Public School District Board of Education attorney advises that the disclosure of the discussion will not detrimentally affect any right, interest, or duty of the school district or any other entity with respect to said discussion. Be it further resolved that the Runnemede Public School District Board of Education, for the aforementioned reasons, hereby declares that the public is excluded from the portion of the meeting during which the above discussion shall take place, and hereby directs the board secretary to take the appropriate action to effectuate the terms of this resolution. Be it further resolved that the board secretary of the next business day following this meeting shall furnish a copy of this resolution to any member of the public who requests one of the fees allowed by NJSA 47:1A. Action on any item may or may not be taken in open session at the conclusion of the executive session. Since we're going to executive first, obviously we will be doing some voting after this executive. So at this time, I'm going to ask the public if you would please step out into the hall.
Thank you.
Move along, since we made a motion to come back in, property and transportation, we are moving along to new business. I need a motion to approve items numbers 1 and 2, facility use and field trips.
Second?
Motion made by Angel, seconded by Naomi. Any questions? Roll call.
Ms. Beebe? Mr. Buckline?
Yes.
Ms. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Lego?
Yeah.
Mr. Murray? Ms. Panzarella?
Yes.
Ms. Samms? Ms. Spalding?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under personnel, I need a motion, but before the motion, we need to change number 9. Number 9 is going to read Caitlin Richter as pre-K 4 teacher, step 1 masters, salary $52,750. She has her master's, not her BA.
Okay.
So just so you know, when we're approving her at step 1 masters, $52,750. I need a motion under personnel to approve items numbers 1 to 31.
I'll make that motion.
1 to 31.
Motion made by Dennis,
I'll second.
seconded by Chaz. Any questions? Roll call.
Ms. Beebe?
Yes.
Mr. Buckline?
Yes.
Ms. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Lego?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella?
Yes.
Ms. Samms?
Yes.
Ms. Spalding?
Yes.
Motion passes.
I just want to congratulate our new hires. I want to just introduce everybody with the name of the face. I'll start just in order here. Steve Maloney is the principal of Marygold School.
Hello, everyone.
Excited to have Steve. Steve starts on Monday, so
Yes.
get going. I'm excited to have him here. I'm sure Mr. Silva has some nice things in that office.
That's also cowboy stuff.
Yeah, get rid of that. Burning.
Caitlin Richter has already started, obviously, teaching pre-K 4 students. He might be.
He said he doesn't want to play anymore. He likes that.
He's good numbers. Welcome, Caitlin.
Thank you.
And Dana, I've already seen, did I say your name correctly?
Yeah, I'm ready. You're good.
Good. This is really our new guidance counselor here at Bold School. We're excited to have her here. She's also entertaining.
Yes.
As well. So, welcome, and we're happy to have everybody.
Thank you.
Hopefully, both Ms. Wilson, she has some papers to sign, so we can get that ball rolling. So, if you want to
Go with her.
go with her, you can.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Under finance, I need a motion for items numbers 1, oh, there's a lot here. 1 to 26.
Make that motion.
Motion made by Chaz,
Second?
seconded by Naomi. Any questions? It's all of our contracts, disposal of all these old books. Anyone else? Any questions? Roll call.
Ms. Beebe?
Yes.
Mr. Buckheim?
Yes.
Ms. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Lego?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella?
Yes.
Ms. Samms?
Yes.
Ms. Spalding?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under curriculum, we need a motion to approve items numbers 1 through 5.
I'll make a motion to approve items 1 through 5 under curriculum.
Second?
Maria, and second by Naomi. Questions? Roll call.
Ms. Beebe?
Yes.
Mr. Buckheim?
Yes.
Ms. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Lego?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella?
Yes.
Ms. Samms?
Yes.
Ms. Spalding?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under policy and public relations, we have items numbers 1 through 3.
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Maria, seconded by Angel. There was one word, Chaz?
One word change.
One word change there on number 3. Any questions? Roll call.
Ms. Beebe?
Yes.
Mr. Buckheim?
Yes.
Ms. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Lego?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella?
Yes.
Ms. Samms?
Yes.
Ms. Spalding?
Yes.
Motion passes.
We are now open for public comment. Any public comment at this time? No? Okay. Next regular Board of Education meeting, do we want to move that up? Or can we move that up? Do you want to move it up to 6?
Excuse me. No, you sure? With public comment.
You want a public comment?
I just wanted to thank everybody for reaching out to me. It really meant a lot to me, the promotions. People came out, Mark came out that night, and everybody that came out. I really appreciate it. It was very moving to me. And it made me feel like I'm part of the team. I respect that. So thank you.
We respect you.
Congratulations.
No? Even at 7, it's up to you. Since we're doing the goals and things like that, would you like to move it to 6? Can you make 6?
It would be tight.
Oh, 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock instead of 7, how about 6:30?
That's a little
Say,
better.
why don't we move it up to 6:30?
So July 16th, 6:30?
July 16th here at 6:30.
Can we bring stuff to eat?
We can.
All right, good.
Well, you're over here still talking, I could be going home to my dinner if you want. Just kidding. What else? Might have to be here. That's fine if it's in here, we don't care. I need a,
Are we going to do the revision for the policy at the July 16th?
well, right, well, they'll word it, we'll do a first reading and a second reading.
Okay.
Yep. And then Mark will get out the meetings from our committee meeting as well.